G'day everyone, my name's Brad Johnson. Welcome to the webinar Navigating Part 66 Licence. Thank you all for giving up your time today to attend the webinar. As I said, my name's Brad Johnson. I'm an Aviation Safety Advisor with CASA in the Aviation Safety Advisor team. And joining me today is Mick McGill. I'll let Mick introduce himself.
Yeah, g'day everybody. Thanks for participating in today's webinar. As Brad said, my name is Mick McGill. I'm a Senior Standards Officer working within the Airworthiness Standards section within Airworthiness and Engineering branch in CASA. My primary role is looking after the legislation development and continuing maintenance and development of guidance material for Part 66 and Part 147.
Great, thanks Mick. So some of the stuff we're going to go through today, Mick actually helped literally write the book on it, so it's great to have him here today. Just some quick information before we get started. Your cameras and microphones are disabled for the webinar today, but you can enter information into the chat, which will be monitored along the way if you wish to do so. This webinar today is called Navigating Part 66, and we're going to focus on understanding the privileges and resources that are available on a Part 66 license. There's a lot of information out there, and we've got some really good resources available for you to use to help understand a Part 66 license. And at the end, we'll also give you some resources or contacts, if you like, that you'll be able to use if you want further information on Part 66 license. So just before I enter into that, just a reminder that you need to keep your details up to date if you're licensed on My CASA, and the CASA website. We've just had a few instances where people have been sent licenses to old addresses and things like that. You might be waiting at home for a new type rating or a whole new Part 66 license, and it ends up getting sent to the wrong address. So if you haven't logged in for a while and updated all your details, jump onto My CASA when you get a chance and make sure those are up to date. Okay, so let's get started. Not all Part 66 AME licenses are created equal, so you need to do a little bit of digging to investigate the privileges of an individual license, and that's kind of what we're going to focus on today, where you can go to work that out. So the licenses that have come about over time could be Car 31 licenses that were grandfathered across. They could be Part 66 licenses that were achieved via the Car 31 pathway. So never actually held a Car 31 license, but actually did SOE and basics that achieved a Part 66 license with exclusions. Maybe you got your Part 66 license via a Part 147 maintenance training organisation, or perhaps self-study, and more recently the opportunity to get a Part 66 license as a modular license, or those of you that may have transitioned your license from overseas foreign licenses, Trans-Tasman Agreement, or even the Defence Force. And I believe, Mick, that there's some changes being looked at in the medium term around recognition of foreign licenses and Defence Force licenses?
Yeah, that's correct, Brad. So you may or may not be aware, CASA currently has a consultation project out at the moment, which is looking at a policy on recognition of foreign licenses. Essentially, the scope of that project is to look at the regulatory system of a foreign country and the licensing scheme that they have in place and their oversight and ICAO compliance and a whole bunch of other criteria. And we'll do an assessment of those recognised states to determine whether that country's regulatory and licensing system is satisfactory to CASA. If they meet that requirement, then we would deem that country as a recognised state and list those countries in an appendix in the 66 MOS. Now, once a country is recognised as a recognised state, anybody with a licence from one of those recognised states can apply to a CASA for the grant of a Part 66 licence that would have equivalent privileges to what they have on their foreign licence. Essentially what this recognised state scheme does would just be remove the requirement, which is currently there for any foreign LAMI seeking a licence in Australia. It's to remove that RPL assessment requirement that would be conducted by one of our MTOs. So that's one of the things we're looking at, which is out for consultation till for another week, I think. And then we're also looking at a reciprocal recognition of DASA Part 66 licenses to CASA Part 66 and vice versa. So it's just something we're looking at now in the very early stages of that policy. Thanks, Brad.
Great, thanks, Mick. So yeah, if anyone's interested in that, jump on the CASA website and have a look at the consultation, and even if you choose to, maybe add to the consultation if you like. So yeah, there's many different ways you may have come about achieving your AME license, your Part 66 license, and it may or may not have exclusions and or inclusions on it. So we'll have a little bit of a look about where you might want to start with your license and working out the privileges that your individual license actually possesses. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to start off at the Part 66 Manual of Standards, because this is where we recommend that you begin. You have your own license or somebody's license with you, and you go to the Part 66 Manual of Standards and start having a look through there at 66.A.20. So I'll share my screen now. So I'll come down to the 66.A.20. And as you can see on the screen there, it lists the privileges of each license that's available. So you can find your license and go through the privileges that exist. We come further down and it continues to have the basic privileges or the core privileges of your license through that part of the MOS. So you can read through that, get a bit of a basic understanding, and then with your license and that basic understanding, then you can come down to Table 1, and it matches the category of license to the ATA chapter. So now you can go an extra step further and have a look at the tasks that you might want to do as reference to the ATA chapter, and have a look at whether that is applicable to your license. Some ATA chapters are only applicable to a B1 license. Some ATA chapters are only applicable to a B2 license, and some ATA chapters are applicable to both. We will discuss the A license a little bit today, but we're more focused on the B1 and B2 licenses and where to find out the information there. But a lot of the resources we'll talk about, including the Manual of Standards, does have information on the A license, the B license, and even the C license, if that's something you want to find information about. Mick, do you want to add anything there about the MOS and the benefits of reading there first?
Yep. So first and foremost, as we know, Australia's Part 66 licensing and training scheme is based on the EASA Part 66 scheme. While our system does have a few unique Australian aspects to the licensing and the training, generally speaking, the privileges are pretty much aligned to EASA's, and they're conveyed, as Brad said, under 66A20 for each of the category A, B1, B2 and C licenses. It should be understood that the basis of your privileges on your license, regardless of what category you may have, is very much based on the underpinning theory training and practical experience that you achieve throughout your training to qualify for the issue of the license. Now, the devil in the detail of that is in Appendix 1 of the 66 MOS, and Appendix 1 has the training syllabus. The syllabus is divided into 17 knowledge modules, and within each of those knowledge modules are various subjects that are required to be trained on and examined on. Not all the subjects within all the modules are applicable to each license category. The main difference being the B1 mechanical pathway license has some unique subjects that are not required to be done by the B2 avionics pathway, and vice versa. And if you look closely at that syllabus in Appendix 1, which I strongly encourage you to do, you need to take account of the far right-hand column of that table, which indicates the knowledge level that is required to be examined at for the subjects applicable to the license category you're going for. And further into Appendix 1, there's an explanation of what those three knowledge levels, knowledge level 1, 2, and 3, what they mean, and the amount of knowledge that is required on each subject. Once you get an understanding of the knowledge levels relating to the subjects within the knowledge modules, that should give you a good indicator of how the privileges are determined for each category of license. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Mick. So just to add further to that one, if we're talking about a license that has exclusions, then you would look at the core privileges in 66.A.20, and then an exclusion would remove one of those core privileges. An example of that would be an E6 avionics LRUs. Not many licenses have an E6 exclusion on them, but if you had that, it means that core privilege of avionics LRUs is not part of your license, and you can't certify under the privileges of your license for avionics LRUs. So that's an important one to understand. The other point is inclusion. So it won't be included in the core privileges of your license, but an inclusion has come about from the holder of a Car 31 license or somebody who did their Part 66 license via the Car 31 pathway, and they were entitled to privileges that a new Part 66 LAMI didn't have, so they were grandfathered across. And an example of that would be oxygen privileges for a B2 LAMI. Further to the information in the MOS 66, so 66.A.21, I'll scroll down to that. That gives the information with Table 2 about the transitional privileges that are granted to those that have been grandfathered across from Car 31, or again, achieved their Part 66 license through the process that would have gained them a Car 31 license. And if they would have had these transitional privileges on a Car 31 license, then it's still granted under a Part 66. So you can have a look there, and Table 2 explains exactly what they are. It's around VFR privileges for electrical, some instrument, and some radio privileges on a B1 license. Excellent. Mick, do you have any more to add on the transitional privileges there?
No, not really. I think you've covered that off well.
Okay,
yep.
No worries. All right, so we'll move away from the MOS now, because we do have some excellent guidance material that can be used to help you decipher all this information, because it's not necessarily the easiest way to understand, but it is the predominant way to begin. So the next one is 66-8 AC 66-8, and it is Part 66 license privileges. Mick had a lot to do with writing this one up, so I'll let him run with this and give you a brief instruction. Give you a brief instruction about this AC.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, so as Brad mentioned, there was a lot of research and effort that went into the creation of this AC, and essentially all the information that is in this AC is also contained within the 66 MOS itself, but we've sort of put it in this AC as a sort of a one-shop stop, and tried to simplify the language a little bit, as the language in a manual of standards can get a little bit legal and a little bit complicated, and if you're not looking at it frequently, you could struggle to understand the language. So working your way through this AC, when trying to determine what your privileges are, one of the things you should really look at closely is under section 1.2, the definitions. So Brad, if you just want to scroll to that. So there's quite a few good definitions of terms used throughout the Part 66 licensing and training scheme, and you need to get an understanding of what those definitions mean, because that can be the driver as to whether you have the privilege on a particular aircraft system or not. So we won't go into detail of each of these definitions, but just to give you an awareness that these definitions are contained within this AC, and I strongly recommend you have take the time to have a good look at this AC generally, but have a close look at the definitions. So if we go further into this document, to section 2.2, so here's where we start to provide a little bit of information about the Part 66 licensing scheme, in general. So 2.2 just outlines the different categories and subcategories of a license and what those subcategories and categories cover as far as turbine fixed wing, turbine helicopters, piston fixed wing, piston helicopters, and avionics. So that's 2.2. If you scroll down a little bit further, we get to section 2.3, which is just talking about Part 66 license terminology. And the terminology in Part 66 can be a little bit different from the previous terminology under the previous CAR 31 licensing system. So it's good to get an understanding of where those nuances, the differences might be. So if you scroll down a little bit further, Brad. Yeah, so look, Part 3, now we get into the more detail of where the privileges of each license category are better explained. Essentially, with a license, any license, you only have 2 privileges. Those privileges are to certify the completion of maintenance, and the other privilege is to issue a certificate of release to service on completion of the maintenance. The devil in the detail is, for each of the license categories, explains what the breadth of those certification privileges are across the different aircraft systems. And that's where it differs from one license category to the next. So in this Part 3, in this AC, it breaks down what the scope of those privileges are for each of the license categories. So section 3.3 talks about category A, and then we move on to section 3.4, which is category B1. 3.5 is category B2, and 3.6 is category C. Then we can scroll further into the document once you look at those particular details of each category. It brings us to Part 3, which just gives us a little bit of background on the transition that happened from the CAR 31 licensing scheme to the Part 66 scheme. Yeah, so this section here just gives a little bit of a general explanation of what happened during that transition period back in mid-2011 when Part 66 was first introduced. And there's a good table there in under 4.2, which just aligns the CAR 31 terminology compared to the Part 66 terminology to give you a bit of an understanding of how we essentially divided a 5-category CAR 31 license into the current Part 66 2-category license. So that's a good table to have a closer look at. There's a little bit of explanation there about license exclusions and inclusions, and just explained how they came about and why they were imposed on transition LAMEs. Essentially because under the CAR 31 licensing scheme, which was airframe, engine, electrical instrument and radio, a 5-category license, and it had its dedicated CAR 31 training syllabus. When you compared that to the 2-category B1 and B2, Part 66 and Part 66's syllabus, there are some subtle differences between the 2 syllabuses, which resulted in the need to apply exclusions to the license for people that transitioned across to make sure that the privileges they had under their CAR 31 license were conveyed as accurately as we could across to the Part 66 license that they were issued at transition. So that's essentially the main body of this AC, which explains and provides that information. Then we move on to the appendices within this AC. Appendix A, as you see there, just gives us a little bit more general licensing information. It essentially repeats the table 1 from the 66 MOS, which just identifies the B1 or B2 privileges into the different ATA chapters. Then we move on to Appendix 2, which talks about license exclusions, provides a little bit more information on that. And then finally, Appendix C, in Appendix B, there's a couple of examples of what a physical Part 66 license looks like, and some explanation there on some aspects of that license. So I encourage you to go and have a look at that to help you navigate your way through the license itself. Information there on the different exclusions that were applied to the license, that transition. There's 45 exclusions. And then finally, Appendix C, there's 2 flowcharts here, which just sort of walks you through in a simplistic fashion on a question that you may ask yourself on the hangar floor is, can I certify for this task? And if you follow the bouncing ball in these 2 flowcharts, hopefully that will assist you in making the decision as to whether you actually have the certification privileges or not. So that's essentially it for that particular document, Brad.
Thanks, Mick. Yeah, I'd just like to add to that one. If you take nothing else away from the webinar today, if you're a chief engineer, a quality manager, a license holder, then AC 66-8 you should be very familiar with. I would suggest even having a printed copy in your toolbox if you're a lamie. It's kind of a one-stop shop for all the information you need to work out the privileges of your license. It's an excellent document and well worth having a read of as part of working out the privileges of your own license. So thanks for that, Mick. I'm mindful of time. We might just move on to another AC, which is, I might need to find this one. I won't spend too much time on this, but I get a lot of questions on privileges of composite maintenance. So we've got a whole AC on that. We won't go right through this AC today, but if you're interested in whether you have the privileges or you want to obtain the privileges on your license for composite structures of aircraft, then this AC is a great place to start. Mick, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just will mention that, as you see there on the screen, this AC 66-4 was originally published in December 2011, and I don't believe it's had an amendment made since that publishing date. But to get a little bit better understanding of what your privileges are on composite structures, I encourage you to go look at section 3.4.3.10 of AC 66-08, which gives you a more up-to-date explanation when you compare to what the information is in this particular AC.
Excellent, thanks, Mick. Okay, so that really covers a few of the guidance material documents. We also have AC 66-5, but that information is also covered in AC 66-8 for privileges, and of course the Part 66 acceptable means of compliance and guidance material. That document also would assist in an organisation writing their exposition or so forth around the licence privileges. But again, 66-8 is the AC to be looking at to work out your licence privileges, along of course with the Part 66 MOS. Now, if you've used all these pieces of guidance material and you still have further questions, then you've got some options through CASA to find out some more. So we have a AME licensing email address, and I'll have that put into the chat. It's ame.licensing@casa.gov.au. Those emails go straight through to our maintenance personnel licensing team. They hold the delegations, they actually issue the licenses, and those guys are all over the questions that get asked for around licensing. So definitely a place you can go. The next stop, if you choose to, is the Aviation Safety Advisor team. So the team I'm part of, we do AV safety seminars, and quite often we're advertising AV safety seminars where you can come along and ask questions. You can elect to contact us. If you go down through to the contact us, it takes you through to a screen. You can put some details in, and you can request us to come and do a seminar at your work location, or you can just ask us to do an on-site visit where we're quite happy to sit down, go through your license, explain some of the finer points or other questions you may have around maintenance, airworthiness, engineering. So that's a couple of handy resources. Our website is another resource. We have what's called the Search Centre. This Search Centre page allows for a lot of topics that you can come through and look at, and there's aircraft maintenance engineering licensing. You can have a look there. That'll take you through to some more information beyond privileges, like training, what the new modular license is, that type of information. Then finally, there's a contact us page. This will go through to the guidance centre. And again, you can have questions about your license, permissions or approvals. You can click on that one and send through, and you'll be given information back in writing from CASA using those resources. What other resources do we have? We have so the Guidance Centre, it's now called the Regulatory Guidance Centre. So if you go through and have a look at that. So we welcome any questions through any of those resources, whether it's maintenance, personnel, licensing, whether it's the Aviation Safety Advisors, the search page, or the Regulatory Guidance Centre. So feel free to access those and send questions in as well. And by all means, if you think it'd be an advantage, we're more than happy to arrange at a time that suits you and us, that we come out, do an on-site visit at your organisation, perhaps do a presentation at your organisation if that's something you're interested in. Otherwise, you can get on the CASA website, have a look at our advertised presentations and AV safety seminars and attend one of those. And just finally, you can keep up to date by subscribing to the CASA website to get information. So once you subscribe, you can enter your email address and tick the boxes that are relevant. There's boxes that will keep you up to date with consultations. There's a box that will keep you up to date with regulation changes. There's a box that will let you know when the seminars are coming about. So that's another option for you. And we also have a Maintenance Matters monthly newsletter that comes out. So if we're hearing information out there that's pertinent or questions that are being asked, we may address them in the Maintenance Matters newsletter. So we're almost out of time. I'll just check, did we get any questions in the chat? Did we get any comments that need to be addressed at this stage? Otherwise, I'll look at wrapping this webinar up.
I see there's one comment there, Brad, which we could probably speak a little to at this point in time. So the question is, how does a chief engineer of a maintenance org know what a license holder's privileges are by looking at his or her license? And how do they know if they have the transitional privileges? So initially, you need to have the understanding of the core privileges for the category of license, so B1 or B2, and you look at those core privileges, they're found under 66A20 in the Manual of Standards. Alternatively, you can go look at AC 66-08, and that will spell out those core privileges as well. Also within 6608 is an explanation of a physical license. There's a few pages there which shows you what a license looks like, and there's some highlighted areas which gives you some explanation of how to read that license. So I would encourage you to go and have a look at that. Regarding the transitional privileges, if the guy was a Car 31 transitioned LAME and he had an airframe and engine license, and if that license had those VFR privileges that are explained under Table 1 in 66A21, then that person would also have those transitional privileges. Alternatively, if the license holder used the Car 31 training pathway to get the Part 66 license, they too would have these transitional privileges. A Part 66 only trained person who only went through the Part 66 system and came out with a B1 license, they do not have these transitional privileges. So hopefully that sort of gives a better explanation there.
Thanks, Mick. Yeah, so if I just go to table 2, which is in the Part 66 Manual of Standards, that outlines the privileges, the transitional privileges, and what would be required by the person who held the Car 31 license or would have achieved the same Car 31 license but achieved their Part 66 license through the transition. So effectively, if you had a Group 1 or 2 rating or a 19, then on a Car 31 license, or you would have achieved a Group 1 or 2, then effectively you would have those transitional privileges. It's for VFR aircraft only, and keep in mind that a full Part 66 license under the current system would give you electrical privileges anyway on both VFR and IFR aircraft. So sometimes it's a matter of sitting down with the license holder. They may or may not have the old Car 31 license that you could check back on, and sometimes then you need to go through using AC 66-8 and determine on the particular license that that person holds whether they would have had those qualifications under Car 31. And if so, then they have the transitional privileges under Part 66. Okay, so I think we're pretty much out of time. If you take nothing else away other than the 2 really important pieces of information, AC 66-8 and the contacts, whether it's maintenance personnel licensing at their email address, AME licensing, or you want to contact the aviation safety advisors or use the guidance centre to ask your questions. That's a great start in working out what the privileges are to your Part 66 license. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time today to go deeper into the privileges and how to work that out, but hopefully we've given you enough information to at least get started and then find a way to ask the questions you need to once you've got a good start at looking at the license. So again, thank you everyone for giving up your time. Thank you, Mick, for joining me today in the webinar. I hope everyone got something out of it. Go ahead, Mick.
I was just going, you're welcome. Yeah, hopefully everybody found this beneficial and at least gives you some direction as to where to find the guidance material.
Right. Okay, so we'll end the webinar now. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks all.